And welcome to another show of Don't Get This Twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm good, Rob. How are you?
Oh, absolutely pleasant. It's warm today.
It is for the first time in a long time.
It's going to be, I think it's pretty yucky outside. It's only 77 now. It's supposed to be like 85 today. Only for a day, though. Only for today, and it's supposed to cool down tomorrow, so who knows?
That's good. I have a lot of people coming over for Father's Day. And by the way, happy Father's Day. We got Father's Day going on.
That's correct. I forgot about that.
It'll be over by the time we air this.
Yes.
But to all you fathers that are listening, happy Father's Day.
Correct.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks for being dads, because being a dad sometimes isn't easy.
And I say thank you for doing what you do, because there's so many things to try to name them just wouldn't be right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we can actually kind of throw that into the discussion today of how hard it is to be a man sometimes. Because I think I sent you a video of a trans man. So someone who used to be a woman, who transitioned and did like a TikTok or some kind of shit like that, where they talked about how hard it is to be a man.
Yeah.
So I thought we would play that.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Should we play it first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, here. Let's play this real quick.
Nobody told me how lonely being a man is. I had closer friendships with random women I met in the bathroom before I transitioned at clubs because of how open women are than I've had in my 8 years of transitioning, because women are just so much more vulnerable and deep than men. But to have known, and I think a lot of trans men feel this, is we knew what depth felt like before we transitioned. We knew what it felt like to have people want to hug us and to have people want to talk to us and to have a community. And then you transition and you're just a guy walking down the street that people cross the street so that they're not near you. And friendships are so much harder to build. And people are colder. What's hard is none of this invalidates how real and raw women and people who are in marginalized groups feel about cis white men. All of that's valid. But I also now understand why the suicide rate is so much higher in men. Because this shit is lonely. Nobody told me how lonely being a man is. I had closer friendships with random women I met.
This is a headline from...
Yep. So obviously, someone who lived as a woman for so long and then transitioned to be a man now lives in the world of the reality of being a man. Mm-hmm. It kind of hit me hard when he was talking about how easy it is to have relationships between girls. And I think that that's probably very true. Where he talked about saying, I could get a hug or I could do this, because I think female relationships are like that. They're way closer than men, where it's just not the normal that men have that kind of relationship. And we do. I think most men generally handle things alone.
Yeah.
They don't go to their friends and lean on them for the same as women do. I think that they will, but I'll lean on some people, but I generally hold it in, or there's a very small select group of people that I'll bounce things off of that are men. I have, and I'll say that with females as well. There's a very small group either way, but I definitely think men hold things in way more.
I didn't realize that growing up, and I grew up with a bunch of really solid men. But now that I've gotten older and in dealing with people on a deeper level, I would say, I'm noticing that. when I was growing up, it was understood that a man was supposed to make the money and the women were pretty much supposed to take care of the kids, right? But I didn't realize in being the one to take in the money, you're not seeing your kids, you're not seeing your wife, you're not getting the joy out of raising your children because you're busy working to support them. It never really dawned on me how that would have felt. You know, even when my dad has said things or my brother has said things, I was like, I never even looked at it that way, because the way we were presented things was so this and that, you know, it wasn't up for a thought even. Plus, not being a man, I had no idea. But seeing now that having friendships with men that work a lot and they don't get to see their family, they don't get to be there for important things, like, I really feel for them now, because all that effort doesn't get them any further in life with, you know, subjects of the heart, but they still have to do what they have to do, and they're expected to. And that's just my own view on like how it was supposed to be, or my views with it, you know, what I was raised with.
Yeah, I think we both were raised with the same thing, because our dads are of that age period, right? They're coming out of World War II dads, right?
Vietnam.
So,
yeah.
Well, Vietnam for them, but they're coming out of World War II fathers, their fathers.
Gotcha.
Right. So they're coming from that very much mom stayed at home and raised the kids, and dad did whatever it took to take care of the family.
Yes.
Like my grandfather lived in Tennessee, but hitchhiked across the country to Detroit to work in car factories so he could send money back to Tennessee so he could raise his family.
Wow.
To the point where, like, my grandfather slept in cemeteries so he didn't have to spend any money on a hotel room. So crazy, a totally different generation. But I think now men are still held to that high regard, right?
Absolutely.
And we've talked about it before, where they have independent women, like, I'm going to go work and I'm going to do this, but you're still up on this level of, you need to do this, and this. So with
women's lib, though, they made men completely wrong and women completely right. And men were the ones that inflicted all this on them. And so they had to fight against men. And in doing so, it's tilted the level on the other end. Like, men, if they're back on their child support, can't leave the country because their passports get taken away and their licenses get taken away. Mm-hmm. And if that's not enough, if they can't drive and they're already stuck in a hole because they're not working or whatever's going on that they can't, and then you add all of that, impounding a car for 30 days. Like, that's what they do. That's what they do if you don't have your bill paid up. And the all or nothing, the black or white way of thinking for any one group is ridiculous, because there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always times when things just, he may really be trying, but he's got some bad luck going on. Why is that not taken into consideration? I think men are not the problem now. I kind of think it's women, because women feel like they could victimize a man now. And we're not getting to the heart of the matter, which is, we need to start being kind to everybody. Everybody needs to have a level playing field. Mm-hmm. And I think that in that, men should be nurtured enough by women that they feel that they could be open with somebody. And we're going through this generation where guys don't feel that way, and it's scary. It's scary.
For
because
sure.
Men are our strength.
I mean, they should be. That should be the, provider, protector. Those are the things that men thrive on.
Even physically,
in a society.
Who they are.
Right. But in a more in society, since the dawn of time, we've had these positions where men, we're provider, protectors, we're hunters, we're gatherers. That's what we do. And as we've gotten, technology and these things, we've switched those things, but there still should be a blueprint for that. Like there's nothing wrong with men taking care of their children. I'm a single dad. I had him since he was 6. I took care of him. It's not that it can't be done, but the social norm.
That it's lonely being done.
Oh, no, it is.
More of the part I didn't see, because my mom was always the one to show up to the school things. My dad just heard about them. But now that my mom's gone and my brother and I are telling my dad stories about what went on, he's like, I had no idea. Here I was raising you guys and had no freaking clue all of these things were going on.
Right. Well, and just imagine if I was the other side of that equation where I didn't have my kid all the time. Right. I couldn't imagine not having my kid. So dads that are out there who unfortunately get the deadbeat tag that are trying, they want to see their kid. They're limited by every other weekend, or they're limited by an angry ex who now is putting the thumb screws to them because they can't pay the absurd amount that the courts have thrown their way. Where instead of just saying, look, let me see what I can do, and we should be able to help each other. If you're a single mom, and again, I'm jaded. Take care of your kid. It's your job.
Yep, I agree with that.
Whether he's there or not, doesn't matter.
You had him. It's your job to make sure you provide. Period.
Correct. And I took mine, and I've said it a million times on here. I got no child support, 0. And we made an agreement for that, and I'm okay with it. My job was to take care of my kid. That's period. And when I needed something, I didn't have to argue with my ex. Now, if you're a deadbeat dad and you don't want to give money for shoes, then you're just a fucking idiot, and you deserve what comes to you. But if you're there and you're trying and you want to see your child, stop using them as a pawn. It's nonsense, because it's just damaging men. We're just doing more and more to them to make them not want to do anything.
Because if you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, you might as well take the path of least resistance.
Exactly.
Why would you want to get all caught up in somebody's bullshit and telling you you're wrong all the time? So since I've been single and having friends that are single, and I could go out more than normal, talking to men and hearing like their stories and seeing how they struggle, I never really thought about all these things that are coming up, because we were basically raised when women's lib was kicking ass. You know what I mean? And men deserved it, because they were really at the time taking advantage of shit and not doing what they needed to do to take care of the responsibilities. I get why it started. But at some point, what we need to expect from everybody is that they do right by their children and each other and themselves by working as a team. The one that they were easily putting together to have the baby, they should be able to easily work on every day to make sure that everything is supported. Not just, well, I did my part. No, that's like the 50-50 rule in a relationship. It doesn't exist. It's like nobody just has to do 50%. That's not the way it rolls. So, but what I'm seeing now is how unfair it is to men, how life in general is. And then you throw on the loneliness. Like, I never thought about that, but you're right. Because girls go into the bathroom and they talk. I hate going into a public bathroom because I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
But when a man, and this is what I understand from my ex, when a man goes in to go to the bathroom, they skip at least one urinal. They try to go completely as far away from the next guy as possible. Well, I get why, but I also understand, there is a smaller community for them to be able to reach out to.
Yeah, there's no small talk in a men's bathroom. I mean, maybe at a club.
All the things we're saying makes it sound dirty too. There's no small talk.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can probably see it at a club, but they're usually probably just talking about women.
Yeah.
Right. I could see, and again, call me wrong because I'm not positive. I've never hung out in a women's bathroom in a club, but I'm guessing that if someone's having a bad night, walks into the bathroom and starts crying, there's a community there to find out what's wrong. Somebody
will. I'll try to sneak out, but
no, but in general, if a dude walks into a men's bathroom and starts crying, people are letting him sit on the floor and cry. I guarantee it. They don't want none of that shit. It's not their business. They skip town. Now, that's bad from a man's standpoint. I think there should be more of a community of men saying, hey, like, get your chin up. What's wrong?
See, men say, suck it up, even to each other.
Well, yes.
Like,
I
when
agree.
You say chin up, that means suck it up, and as much as I think as a society, women need to take a lot of the responsibility for men feeling so lonely and everything. So do men. Like, you got to support women, each other. So men should say, something.
But I just think that it's built into our DNA. This is thousands of years. This isn't like people think that it's a small sliver of what we are. We're talking 4,000 or 5,000 years of DNA of men having to do whatever it took to make sure that the family survived. And I'm talking like way back. But even now, like, to me, you have to look at the reality of what's going on. I hate to say that I'm lonely, but I am lonely because now I have a man that lives in the house stays in his room all the time and rarely chats with me and really doesn't talk to me about life. Almost nothing.
And you're a talker, so it's got to be lonely.
Yeah.
I'm like that with my niece and nephew. They're not big talkers. And I force it out of them. I literally say, so I'm sitting here for the next hour with my niece and nephew. Whether we interact will be on them. But if they put their phones down, there may be a 20 in it for them. Like I do stuff like that as I'm sitting with them to get their attention. Right. They don't make me pay them, which is cool. But
I just think that, like, my son talks. I just think that he's his own person now, which separates things. And I don't have a significant other, so I am lonely, but I try to fill my time with whatever I can to keep my mind from going down roads they shouldn't. Right. Because what do they say? The idle time is the devil's something or other.
Tools.
It's like,
what is it? I thought it was idle hands.
No, it's idle time is the devil's something, but
I don't know.
I just think that we have to get to a point where we stop looking at men like that. And I don't know how it's going to happen because society now wants to weaken the modern man. They almost pushing us out of whatever it took because women can now do everything. Right. Like, and I had a small argument with somebody about like that one time. They were like, we don't need men. And I was like, cool. Who's going to build your roads? Who's going to go fix the electrical wires? Who's going to go, jump in the piles of shit when your plumbing doesn't work? It's not women. And people will say, well, women do those jobs. It's a minute, very, very small fraction. And we're talking almost none.
They don't do enough that it would take to make everybody's plumbing work in a given day.
Yes. So, here it is. Idle time is the devil's playground.
Devil's playground. Okay.
Which makes sense because when you have tons of time to think about things, you start thinking bad thoughts. That's what that should go for. I just think that we need to get back to a point where it's like, look, we need men. We need women. We're equally as important in functioning societies.
We're the balance.
The yin and yang
together are the balance. Yes.
Yeah. It's a yin and yang. And it is. Like I told you the one time, like, look, if you live alone and you're a female, you have no choice but to defend yourself. So if there's a racket in the middle of the night, it's up to you to check on it. But in a relationship, the man should be the one going because he's supposed to be the protector of the family. That's his job, to make sure his kids and his wife or girlfriend are taken care of. It's that thing where I heard a Steve Harvey bit today. I was listening to a podcast, and he does a bit where he talks about his wife and that he was with her as a young man, and then they didn't see each other for like 20 years, and then they got back together and got married. And he looks at her and he goes, "I will kill everyone in this arena for you."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, before something happens to you, everyone in here's dying, or I'm dying to make sure you make it, out of that. So men are being looked at now as throwaways. Like, we don't need them. And truly you do, because in a functioning society of birthing people, you have to have a man and you have to have a woman, regardless of what the media likes to tell you that you can be either. It's nonsense.
No, it's true.
Biology will trump you every time.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at someone who used to be a woman in that clip we played, who now has the hard reality of what it's like to be a man every single day. It's not easy. And we're getting bashed more and more to where we don't want to be in relationships. We've talked about that on another podcast, where it's getting harder and harder to even want to get in.
Just be heterosexual, white, and educated. God forbid. Yeah. Like, what is going on where doing what we were taught was right to do, which was go to school, get educated, try to fit the mold, do your job and everything. Since when did that become a bad thing?
When the modern media and some agenda push that forward. Like when that dude used the word cis, I hate that fucking term.
What does cis even mean?
It's their way of saying straight people.
Oh, we could just say straight, because then we wouldn't have to Google all this shit up.
Well, I get shit, and I'll probably get shit from friends that I know that hear this. It means normal.
Yeah.
Because that's
when you
the
said
societal.
Normal, that kind of stuck a nerve with me, because what really is normal? It depends on when you grew up and what your bar was set for you. That's how I see it, because normal for me isn't normal for you.
No, but the societal normal. We're talking about the mass majority of what human beings think. That's the societal normal.
That's really normal. When you turn on, I don't watch TV, but if I'm with my dad and my cousin and I'm out there, of course I'm watching it. Mm-hmm. And every commercial has two men kissing. Every commercial has a black parent and a white parent. Every show has something on it. And to me personally, I don't care, but I'm cool to not see anybody kissing on a normal nighttime show. Like, we're talking on local media. We're not talking on cable television. We're talking normal network TV. And I'm sitting with my niece and my nephew. I don't want to watch that around them.
Right.
It's uncomfortable for me. And I know that if it goes on in their world, cool, they're okay with it. But it didn't go on in my world like that. And I'm not okay with it. Not that I think that we need to hide who we are. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, does it have to be so in our face?
Well, like I said, people hate because I use the word normal all the time, because it's a societal. I don't care, because that's the reality of the world. And I'm talking about every continent on this planet.
Yeah.
If you think I'm wrong, look at continents other than Western societies. So no Australia, no England, no America. Go to Africa and talk about and say cis. They'll be like, you mean everyone else? Because everyone else is the the other part of the equation. It's the smaller bit. So, and again, I'm not throwing shade or trying to be a dick or try to be mean, but normal society, and I'm talking about every regular normal society on this planet, thinks that way. There are always going to be outliers, and that's okay. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have those. There should be diversity, because there really is diversity in the world. But to put someone who's gay on every show is not realistic, because if you're 4% of the country, you're really not 4% of everything. Mm-hmm. But now it's being pushed that, again, we're pushing the normal white male out of everything. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, going to be a huge problem long haul, because it's not realistic. It's just not realistic. And here's the other part, though. Like, we've being a man, look at how men are treated in other cultures. So go down the line of let's say white, Asian, Hispanic, Black. And if we want to go with statistically speaking, white males are probably in their children's lives 50% because divorce rate. Mm-hmm. Hispanics stay and because they don't get divorced very often, and they're generally more family oriented. Asians probably the same way, and blacks, you look at statistically speaking, about 68% of black households have no father in them. Mm-hmm. So why are we pushing these men away from their children? It's bad. And we did that show on what happens when there's not a father in the home. Well, let them be part of the damn kid's life. I saw a video, I want to say on Instagram, where it was a black guy, and he was talking about how it was when he was a kid, and he was probably our age. And he goes, now the older men, let's say 28-year-old men, don't say anything to these young kids anymore in the streets. And he goes, when I was a kid, the men in the town would whoop your ass and then take you back home to your mom, and mom would go, glad you whooped his ass. Because we put men or fathers on that level
of victims, though. We didn't have a culture where everybody was a victim. Like if my mom heard that another parent had to say something to me, mm-hmm. I was going to get it. She wouldn't have wanted anybody to put her hands on me. She would have saved that for herself. But if somebody had to reprimand me and she caught wind of it, my ass was in trouble. Like, period.
Yeah. Me too.
And then hope to God she didn't say anything to Dad, because then I'd have to hear about it all over again.
Yeah.
And by that time,
another
I'm like,
whooping.
Forget it. No, I normally just got one, but I got
That's
one.
Good.
That's the point. I got one. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, me too.
I think that all these little bitch kids that say that's abuse. No, you need to get your ass whooped once in a while. Mm-hmm. So it'll keep you honest. I'm sorry. I just agree with that. And if you don't agree, I don't care. Like I see what this world's coming to, where kids don't have any sort of consequences for their actions. That's not fair. That's not fair to them either.
And I think boys more, because look, you have all these single mothers of men. Who's going to tell them no? Mom, who's now, let's say 5'4", and their child is 6'2" and 300 pounds. Mm-hmm. How are you going to tell your kid he's not going out tonight because he wants to go gallivanting through the city?
When I was growing up, they brought them to my house because my mom was wild and my dad was just, you're not going to fuck up, right? Like, this is how it's going to be. But we don't even have community anymore as a society for people to even get the help, for all these single mothers to have any sort of support.
Right. But we had back in the day, like I'm saying, men, well, for one, men stayed it with their children, or they had a better way of fixing that, where, there was still co-parenting, and it probably died with our parents.
Yeah. Well,
right.
It stopped when women started taking away everybody's rights as men too. Instead of coming to a happy medium, it became this guy's the perpetrator. Let's take everything we can from him. I think that's when it started to change, because before that, men could be more around their kids, and they weren't so damn resentful trying to be around them either. It wasn't so freaking frustrating for them.
It's got to be crazy, like how bad women would bury the father.
Man.
See, like I can say it, and the people who know around me, and you could even ask my kid, I never said anything bad about his mom.
There's
no reason to.
Right?
There was no reason to bury her, whether I was mad at her or not. And thankfully, there wasn't a lot of real resentment anyway. But it wasn't going to solve any problems. You're making someone the enemy. And I think women who are bitter for whatever reason, bury dad. So now dad is always going to be the enemy. And you're just making a resentful, lonely, pissed off man in a house alone.
And you're making a bunch of pissed off kids. Because they're wondering why their dad doesn't love them. They're wondering why nobody's there when they need them. They're wondering why they weren't good enough for their parents to make it work. They've got their own set of hangups.
What do you think is a way that we could fix this situation? And again, I'm throwing that out on a very long limb, because I think that there's tons that we can do.
I thought about that. And me as a person, being the talker that I am, and the one that will just go up and hug anybody, and the one that will strike up a conversation, I need to maybe be more thoughtful in my actions on a day-to-day. And if I see something, I should say something, or just open up and say, hey, how's it going? If I catch somebody's eye, and not to flirt, not to be, doing anything, but just to be more willing to be open. I really do have good conversations with my male friends. I really ask them questions they don't want to answer. I like having that sort of relationship with them. So I think in that respect, with my friends, they know that they should, and they would absolutely be supported if they needed anything. They should call me. They know that. I know they know that, right? You know that, right?
Of course. Well,
okay.
Me? You're not really asking me that, are you?
No, I'm just saying,
okay.
I'm just saying, I hope I did a good job in the men in my life, especially, that I make special time for them, because I was raised with a bunch of men, really good men that were really good to me. So I don't have any sort of hangups about a man being a man or a woman being a woman. I'm good with that. So, but I think as women, we are the soft side, and we're supposed to be the soft side. That's what our specialty is. We're the warmth in the heart. So I think as society, we need to stop just telling men they're shit and they're worthless and we don't need them, and start really validating the point that we're all in this together, and we all need to treat each other better. And if we take the time to have better relationships with one another, man and women especially, then there won't be such a high divorce rate, and there won't be such a high suicide rate. There also won't be as high of abuse rate, because if we're meeting in the middle and we're working as people, and I think as a whole, that's what everybody's trying to do, is just be happy and try to, get along. I think if we do that and we don't keep making victims out of ourselves, things could get better. I'm not saying that life will be perfect. I'm not saying that, roses and sunshine are on the horizon. We just got to be nice to the man next to us. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we start with our own actions. It's like that Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. Like, it starts with who we are. And we need to quit freaking blaming one thing over another. It's everybody's fault that everything in this world is going on, period. Because we're all in it. We're all influencing it.
Yeah. My big thing is to stop telling people that masculinity is not good. We need to stop that. Toxic masculinity is what makes this planet go. When you there's a guy out there who people hate. His name's Andrew Tate, but we should listen to him on a lot of different levels. He says that everyone hates toxic masculinity until someone's trying to hurt you, and then who do you call? The most toxic person with a gun that can come and save you. But masculinity in general is not bad. Stop trying to feminize men. We're not.
And you're not supposed to be.
We're not supposed to be. Femininity and masculinity are the yin and yang as well. We need masculine people to run society, and we need feminine people to make sure, or feminine women and masculine men, to make sure that both those yin and yangs go together, that when you have children, that you can have both a side of harshness and a side of love, and then they meet in the middle. And in a regular relationship, you do need masculinity, because when you're out and something arises, you want that man to stand up and make sure that you don't get hurt, or this doesn't happen. There's nothing wrong with that. We are now making any kind of masculinity horrible. I mean, you have men in dresses on the covers of magazines now, where you look at it and, it's almost humorous in a sad way. We need to be okay with men being men and women being women. There's nothing wrong with this. If we don't start doing this as a culture, back in this country at least, and maybe any Western society, we're going to push ourselves away, because everyone else is that way. China, Africa, the Middle East, with even their downfalls of how they treat women. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say that the way some of the women are treated in those countries isn't bad, but at least they have their places in society. And most societies run better when you use that format. It's worked for 3,000 or 4,000 years. Why are we trying to change it now?
And it's changing so rapidly. That's what's kind of interesting to me. I remember when I was younger, my parents would say, well, times were different when I was a kid. I get that now, because it really was different for us, being raised where we were, it's not even the same world that we're looking at. And I know my generation is specifically, I hear them saying all the time, what the hell did we do wrong? That is going so far the other way.
Yeah.
But if you have enough influences that are, out there and pushing their agendas, it doesn't take very much, before somebody's like really out there and just screaming it. And
yeah.
Should we be screaming anybody's agenda? Really?
Well, I mean, look, you should fight for what you believe in. And I'm never going to say that you shouldn't. But there's also a point where you have to look on how society in general works and how it's worked. It's just a norm of how we are as this animal, because that's what we are. We're animals. If you went into any structured animal world and tried to change how they are, they would not survive. And just because we're a bigger brained standing up organism doesn't mean that we're smarter than the bears. We're not.
It's true.
We need to stay in our lane. And mostly if these people, like, I'll give you the example of like climate deniers, or saying, if we don't do this, the world's going to end. And if we don't do this, we're fine, or whatever. If we don't continue to mate, there won't be anyone here for the planet to survive. It'll just right down the toilet. and that's reality. But we need to pick men up, I think, a little bit more these days. And as you can tell, someone who used to be a woman, who's now a man for 8 years, realizes that it's not the happy place that everyone thinks it is to be a man in this society. And if we keep pushing, we're going to not have women being protected by men anymore. And it's going to be a much more harsher world to live in. We need strong men to make sure that the world keeps going, because strong men end up making softer men, because then they think they don't have to do anything. And then the world goes to shit. And who do they start looking for? Stronger men again, because it's the only one who's going to rebound that society. So go find young men. And I mean, young men, like 20 and younger, and make sure you tell them what it means to be a man in society. Because the colleges and the media is telling them to be weak individuals who just stand by with a sign in their hand instead of being the one throwing punches. And sometimes you have to throw punches, because if you don't, you will end up being weak. And like there's my friend down the street. I do my best. His father isn't in his life enough. So I made it my thing to make sure that I check on him and make sure he's doing okay. And that some man in his life gives a shit about him, because he's a good kid. And I don't want him to go off the rails, thinking it's that men or fathers or men are all like that, because they're not.
That's
People
true.
care about you. And I make sure my kid knows that you have to be a strong man, because that's what women will want later on in life. They're going to want a strong man who's going to take care of them, that they feel safe with. And I don't mean safe in just like, oh, thank goodness everything's fine. No, I feel safe around this guy. Like, he's going to take care of me and my kids and make sure nothing happens to us and we get home safe. To me, that's way more important in life. And that's what I want in a mate. I want a mate who's okay with taking on sometimes the feminine role of, let me talk to them on this level, instead of, because men are brash. We talk very, I mean, I hate to say it, just like very on top of people. Sometimes it's good to give a woman the lead and say, go talk to them and see what's wrong with them. We need that yin and yang, but we need to stop burying men under this very false societal shit that you don't need to be a man anymore. You need to be soft. You need to cry. You need to be open.
Well, and there is a time and space for that in life. There is.
Mm-hmm. There is.
But we also need them to be the ones to suck it up sometime. But I just think as a society right now, we're asking men to not only go against who they are with their strength, but to, we're going to make fun of them for being strong on top of it, but we're going to lean on them when we need it. But, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, it just doesn't seem fair. And
it's a yo-yo relationship.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it is when I'm with my friends, maybe because we're older, and we see a guy and he's doing something like really like,
manly?
Carrying something, manly. They're carrying something really big, or they're getting dirty and they're doing like their job or whatever. We all kind of rubberneck it and look at them, go, damn, that's hot, because it's genetically, it is.
Yes.
It's supposed to be sexy. It's supposed to be attractive. And I'm not thinking, oh, I wish he'd put that down and like start complaining about his life with me. That's not what I'm thinking.
No.
Like, wait, you just threw that around. Can I get some of that attention?
Yeah. Or when something needs to get done that you can't do physically, he's going to be the person there to make sure it gets done, regardless of what that is. It's taking the tree out of the ground. It's, getting in,
replacing a tire on the freeway.
Yeah. If someone's in your face, he's going to make sure he's in between you and making sure that stops. It's okay to be a man in society today. And I wish more people will push that instead of the weakening of this modern man.
Well, I don't know how much influence I have, but I really do try all the time to tell people, no, that's wrong. Like, don't you like that men are sexy like that? Aren't you turned on by the fact that he wants to growl at you before you guys have sex? Like, it's okay to be wanted like that, isn't it? It is. So why would you cut him down for all these things? I'm just hearing a lot of shit lately about men, and I'm like, well, wait, it doesn't make sense. Why are you mad at that? Why are you mad at that?
And most of those burly, manly men, they want feminine women.
Well,
that's just reality.
I noticed that in my life, the ones that are kind of the biggest dicks are normally closer friends to me. Like the guys that are like, I'm Superman, I do this. They first of all, they entertain me because I think they're funny that they're so, themselves. But also I think they like it too because I never put them down. I'm like, that's right, growl, give it to them. Like, I encourage bad behavior or what people think is bad behavior just because it's more entertaining for me. But I also think that when guys are acting like that, it is sexy. I'm okay with that. And
it's worked for thousands of years, Tina.
My thousands genetics are saying that you were right, Rob.
And just remember, like at some point there was a guy with a club who hit some woman over the head and dragged her by the hair back to a cave.
Sometimes I would even say that's sexy. So
yeah, look, it's fact. It's built into us. We're gonna leave it on that. Make sure you check our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and make sure you go to all the podcasting places you can listen to this. Share, like, follow for free. It's all free. It's great. We don't cost a thing. And this is an opinion show, so don't get it twisted. If you'd like to come on and talk with us, we're more than happy to have people on. And until next week. Anything else there, Miss Tina?
Have a good Father's Day.
Do my best. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.